How's it going, everybody? Um, I wanted to do this video because lately, as I've been upgrading my kit, my electronic kit, and I've been, just reading different reviews and just educating myself a little bit on, what I'm buying. Um, I see all of the just battling and bickering over acoustic and electronic drums. um, and I understand to a degree because I was one of those dudes a long time ago. Um, I grew up playing an acoustic set, and when I started out when I was 9, and I played that set for it built off of it, but I mean, I still had the core 5 piece. 17 years later, I was still playing it, and I love my acoustic drums. But when I moved out here to California, I couldn't fit them in my car, and then it's a whole story in a video that has already been done. But I back then I looked into the electronics and all, and again, long story short was you know eventually I got back in it, and I had to go the electronic route because of um, you know sound reasons and space reasons. So um, I wanted to kind of talk today about just acoustic versus electronic, and um, hopefully we can kind of bridge the gap here a little bit and have kind of be more collective with stuff. Starting out on the acoustic side, like myself, I was going to get ready to start saying most dudes, but myself included, with most dudes, would say that acoustic. There's just nothing. You cannot express yourself on the drums like you can on an acoustic kit. It just the nuances and the things you can do are just very cool and very organic, because it's all you're dealing with the wood and the brass and the you know um, at the same token, if you don't have a really good set of mics, a lot of that stuff that you're doing is going to get lost anyway. So um, you got to think about that for one. So now you're adding amplification and microphones, which I'm not saying that turns your acoustic drums into electronic, but I'm just saying it's a step further that we're talking about here. It's a step. And then let's get into also this real quick. I mean, most of us, if we're playing metal, rock, stuff like that, I mean, we're playing with an electric guitar, right? Is acoustic guitars don't make those sounds. You can't get distortion and reverb, and well, I guess you get a little bit of reverb out of an acoustic guitar, but you know what I'm saying here. You don't get a whole set of pedals and all that kind of stuff. So when we start downing a set of electronic drums because we say that they're not natural, and it's just not music, we need to rethink certain things. A lot of bands have keyboards in them that are not traditional piano or organ. They're electronic keyboards with all kinds of crazy sounds and stuff in them. It doesn't. It's that's all still music, you know. Um, it's like that sticker that goes around. Drum machines have no soul, and I agree with that, because it's just too. Humans aren't perfect, and a perfect beat is just too mechanical. For me, everybody has different tastes. Nonetheless, I wouldn't say it's not music. Uh, yeah, I wouldn't say it's not music because a song was using a drum machine that was programmed drums or programmed whatever. It's still music. Um, it's just it lacks the life that music has, because when you're a live person playing an instrument, it's you can't mimic that. So, uh, and I say this, I'm just saying this stuff to say that, like, just kind of tackling the first argument against electronic drums is usually it's just, no, I don't want to bring that like electronic stuff into the band and all. It's not cool. But you're filled with electronic stuff already, and I'm not saying, you know, hey, let's just make it all electronic. I'm just saying that an electronic drum kit is just, an electronic drum kit. Uh, so is there the reasons to play an acoustic kit are just you can express yourself a lot and with a lot more detail when an acoustic kit, like an advanced player, more advanced than me, because I can't like do it like that. I mean, I can do it a little bit, but unless you're going to get like one of the TD50s, or I don't know what the top of the line Yamaha kits are, but like they're rolling TD50, like I would imagine that's pretty expressive as far as dynamics and just, being able to, apparently you can go anywhere you want on the pad and just different stuff like that. So maybe I've never played one, but an acoustic drum offers a lot of dynamics to it and a lot of different sounds and things that you can pull out of it. So you are not going to get that with an electronic drum kit. They're gonna try to mimic it, but it's not gonna. You're not gonna keep it. It's not going to be there. So in some ways, an electronic kit's a little more challenging to pull stuff out of. Now, on the other hand, with an electronic kit, well, you know what? I'm going to come back and talk about the electronic kit here. Another problem that people tend to have with electronic kits is that I hear a lot that if you practice with an electronic kit, you're going to be screwed for practicing on, or playing an acoustic kit. That you're going to lose, everything and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, man. I don't want to like call people out or whatever, but that's just not been my experience. I mean, it's kind of like it is a different feel completely playing an electronic kit to a acoustic kit. It's 100% different. But I'll tell you another thing that's different. With my acoustic kit, I have a 24-inch Zildjian Z Series heavy power ride, and it's a beast, man. Way back when, years ago, my band, we were hanging out over at my friend's house with his band in his garage, and we were all just kind of messing around, and we kind of started to play a couple songs. And my friend had like a 20-inch ride, and it was like or a Sabian, like I can't remember, but it was like a pretty thin ride. And we played 3 songs, and man, my ham was feeling it playing his ride because it was nowhere near loud like mine. And back in those days, dude, it was like, we were still like 14, 13, stuff like that. So we're playing like Slayer and all that kind of stuff, and you're doing like the 16th notes on the ride, like that was like the signature, go-to beat of Dave Lombardi, like that was just all through thrash metal back in the day. And like, dude, to produce the same sound on his ride than on mine was, do night and day. Like I said, my arm was hurting by the time it was, and then let alone the bell of his ride, dude, was like so much smaller than mine. It was like dude, you had to really whack it to get some sound out of it. So, and then I've also had times when I've bought new crash cymbals and stuff like that, and they just like back in the day I had a pretty heavy hand, so like I would break cymbals enough, and okay, so I break my right crash over here, replace it with the other one, and just as I'm playing, find out that it's not as loud or too loud. Then so you gotta. What I'm getting at is it's about adjusting. Um, if you play an electronic kit for 5 years and you go to start playing on an acoustic kit, are you gonna like knock it off in one like you go to to like a live performance? Like you get to the show and they're like, "Here's your kit, dude. You're just gonna nail it." No, maybe a half hour in there you might start feeling more comfortable, but the thing is the same thing vice versa. If you play acoustic drums for all those years, like I did, and then you go over to an electronic kit, that feels totally different. But the thing is regardless of the feel, we're still taking sticks and hitting something to produce a sound along with music. That's the end product of the drums. You know what I mean? So, dude, you play on a pillow, you play on a practice pad, you play on. I mean, dude. In fact, one of the things I encourage is I have multiple practice pads that I've acquired over the years, and some of them on purpose, some of them just because I couldn't find one or something, and then turned up again. But I try to keep several different consistency practice pads that I switch out from, so I'm always switching myself off with my the bounce and everything. So I'm constantly re-challenging myself. That's just part of drumming, So you can't tell somebody, that if you play an electronic kit, you're never going to be playing an acoustic kit. That's just crazy, in my opinion. Like you adjust, and it may take an hour, it may take a day or two, it may take a week or two. It depends on you and your skill level, and a lot of other things that I can't answer. But what I can answer is for myself. I've actually tested that theory. I've been to Guitar Center playing on acoustic kits, and I'm pretty cool. I mean, I'm a little bit sloppy with, when I first start rolling around the toms and stuff because it's just a different bounce. But, I mean, you don't go and play crazy shit in Guitar Center right off the bat. You play some easy stuff and you start figuring out the bounce, and, next thing you know, a couple little boom, 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 and you're hitting it, it just, that stuff is going to change every time you change something on your kit. Get a set of play a set of 13-inch hi-hats, and then go and start playing a set of 15-inch hi-hats, and see if you're not playing a little. Your hi-hat doesn't have to adjust. Your right hand doesn't have to adjust to it. Just any of that stuff. So that's the number two argument that I guess people say for against electronic drums is if you start practicing on them, you're gonna ruin your it's gonna be completely ruined for acoustic drums for life. I don't agree with that at all. I think that it's gonna be what you make it and how you adjust, but you can adjust like 100%. And the more like if you have to practice on an electronic kit and play live on an acoustic kit, you'll be cool. You'll just adjust the feels because you'll be that much quicker at it. So don't let that scare you from using an electronic kit, because what will make you suck on acoustic drums or any drums is not playing. And that's kind of the number one thing for me. Like, I can tell you right now, if you got a choice, get an acoustic kit. If you truly have a choice and you can play it, and you either have a basement or some sound, or you're going to do something, it'll be cool. Get an acoustic kit. It's way easier to upgrade. It's way easier. You bust a head, you buy a new head. If you break one of those wire harnesses from an electronic kit, your whole kit's done until you get a new one for like 70, 80, $100 or whatever. If you want to upgrade your acoustic kit, you buy a cymbal secondhand and you buy a stand, and you boom, there's a new cymbal for you. Try upgrading an electronic kit, dude. You got to spend money. So for sure, acoustic kit over an electronic kit if you have the choice. But if you don't, an electronic kit is the same thing. You're playing patterns on pads of some sort of make, whether they be plastic, wood, rubber, donkey skin, whatever. You're hitting something, you're taking a stick and hitting it on something. That's what drums is. So remember that. That's our part 2 here. And we're going to come back for part 3 in a second. Okay, and then the third thing is a lot of guys say that velocity is something that doesn't translate with electronic drums, that you can think that you're playing something properly and you're not. That's another thing that, is probably the most valid point out of all of them, to be honest with you. But that really boils down to your honesty as a drummer. Like, I can speak for myself. I have the Roland TD4 and TD11 modules. And both of those modules allow sensitivity tuning to where you can kind of make it pretty close to, you start hitting the snare light and you get little buzzes. You hit it louder, you start getting more cracks. Same thing with the tom. You start hitting them lighter, and you can tune the sensitivity for proper dynamics, and that's the goal. Or you can tune the sensitivity to hide your mistakes. That's, like I said, that's going to boil down to your honesty. That doesn't really have anything to do with a reason to not take electronic drums. You get them and you tune them as close to an acoustic drum's response as possible, and then you play them. It's kind of like with death metal. Like, death metal bands nowadays, they trigger so much in the bass drums that you're not even really hearing bass drums. You're hearing like ticking as it's going, and I'm not really too cool with that. As it's amazing to hear, but just not for a long time for me, I guess. I'm more of an old school death metal guy from like the late 80s, early 90s. It kind of started getting out of hand in the mid to late 90s for me with speed wise. But a lot of those guys, it depends. They trigger them to turn on only at certain points. So they're only when they're playing like real fast. And it's, I wouldn't do it, but you're playing on an acoustic kit with electronic triggers. And again, it's just another thing, like people say against electronic drums, people trigger acoustic drums all the time, I guess is what I'm saying. And you can certainly set an electronic kit up to feel like an acoustic as much as it can, to where it'll respond to your dynamics like it's supposed to, as much as it can. Which we're going to move right into that right now. So now we've blew away all the mysteries and the hate and all the blah blah blah, and we've come to the conclusion that we're all just hitting things with sticks and playing patterns, and depending on what you're hitting and what you're holding, you got to adjust how your the velocity of your movements during that pattern. That's, as a drummer, something that we need to be able to do anyway. So, okay, now you're sold. Okay, I'm going to get an electronic kit. Couple little tips before we end the video to guideline you. I don't know much about the Yamahas. I was not ever a very big fan of Alesis. They were actually, when I started looking at electronic drums, they were the first ones that I really started looking at, like, ooh, these guys are somewhat affordable and you get like a pretty cool kit. But when I started listening to them on YouTube, and it just didn't quite sound as good to me. And I'm not into like triggering stuff through MIDI and all that. I'm like, I understand Apple customers now. You buy an iPhone, and I guess it's just supposed to work. I have an Android, but that's what they say, and it's like that's like with me with a rolling kit. Like I bought it, and I want to plug it in, and I want to play my drums into my music program so I can mix it with the band and play and put our music together. I'm not interested in a long chain of triggering things and stuff like that. So you want to get a kit that's a little bit. You don't want to get like a $200 or $300 kit. You're not going to be happy. You probably want to look at spending about $1,000 on a kit, and understand that if you want to upgrade it, your best and cheapest bet is buying a second brain or module to upgrade your sounds that way, and running it like that. Either run both modules into a mixer and then to your computer, or run each module like the headphone out into the input of the one module and then to the, like that. But just make sure you're getting something. Like I said, you're spending like around 800, $1,000, $700. You're and you want to try to get something that has a pad that'll take a real kick pedal. You want to try to stay away from the little foot switches. Now, one thing I will say is Roland makes something called a KT10, Kick Trigger 10, and I live above a dude, and sometimes like double bass especially, I can annoy him, and these were supposed to be pretty quiet, so I had bought a pair of them, and they seem pretty quiet, and they feel like I've switched them out between I have a DW 3000 double pedal and a KD9, and I've switched it between the KD9 and the DW pedal to the KT10s, and it's pretty much the same feeling. It's maybe the difference in feeling is maybe the difference if you buy like a Pearl or a Tama bass drum pedal, and you're playing on a different kit with a different bass drum pedal that's not yours, but it works pretty good. Even so, I would advise against that, and I would advise something that gives you an actual pad that you can hook a single or double pedal up to. I would also advise you to go with the upgraded hi-hat so where you can put it on a stand and use an actual hi-hat stand, because that'll help you for crossing over to acoustics if you ever want to. But other than that, man, just if you're in a situation where you can only play electronic drums, and play electronic drums. Get yourself, there's a couple different amps you can get for them so you can start playing with bands and stuff like that live, or like, in the garage, or, just practicing or whatever. So, figure on spending about maybe $1,600 to get yourself really all set if you have nothing. Because, you're going to need a throne, and you're going to need a kick pedal and stuff like that. But, yeah, just other than that, just remember that, the drums are just drums. You're just hitting things. So get yourself what you can get for the situation that you're in, and practice. And, the big thing is going to be, and don't let anybody tell you that, this or that's going to make, like I said, what's going to make you suck is not practicing. Always keep playing, working on your technique, and how that meshes out as you switch to different drums and different pads and textures and stuff. You'll have to adjust as a drummer. I hope this was beneficial to some people who are looking to get an acoustic or electronic kit, and they're kind of on the fence and don't know. And have a good day. Peace. Be blessed. I wanted to take a few minutes and make sure I didn't leave without giving you guys some benefits also of an electronic kit that you have. It's somewhat of an advantage over an acoustic kit. It's the ability to change things on the fly. Like, you can have a drum kit programmed that I program mine to sound like, certain kits. I have my main kit is kind of programmed sound like a Tama Rockstar. And I have like 6 versions of that kit, but with just certain things different. Like, I have like 3 of them just with different snares. And, one of them has a different hi-hat, ride, and snare setup. One of them has a whole different cymbal setup. One of them has different tunings on the toms. So it's kind of like you ever seen a show and you've seen the guitarist flip out like 3, 4 different guitars throughout the show, and everybody's like, oh, he's just showing off. But what he's doing is he's changing, the key, and different guitars are tuned differently. So he's got that ability. As a drummer, we can't pull out a new set, so we'd have to sit there and tune our drums as the song goes. But with an electronic kit, we have the ability to actually, tune our kit on the fly, just like that, between songs by the push of a button. So that's a pretty cool thing. You can do some really, really cool stuff with that if you're writing music with it, because you can tailor your kit to each song almost if you really want to. But I generally just have like I said, just utility kits for different things, and I kind of just go back between that. But nonetheless, it's a cool thing. Um, and it's nice having multiple zones of things. Like I said, you can upgrade your kit with another module, but depending on what kit you're getting, you don't necessarily need to, because your cymbals can be programmed with one thing on the bow and one thing on the edge. So you can get multiple sounds per cymbals, and even your drum heads, depending on the kit you have, will have a rim, and you can program different sounds to that rim. So it's like my heads right now are single zone heads, but I do want to upgrade to double zone heads at one point. And when I do, I can put like wood blocks or whatever on the rims of my toms, and that's a pretty cool thing. Like when you start thinking about stuff like that, like I have a China programmed on the end of edge of my ride cymbal, um, and just stuff like that. So there's certain things where you can kind of take advantage of multiple parts of your drum in different ways than you can on an acoustic kit, which is kind of cool. Another thing that's kind of cool is, you know, recording is super easy. Like, all I got to do is plug my kit into the computer and either play, or there's even like this auto record function that records up to like 20 minutes or something like that. And you can play and then play that back into the computer. And that's even, I kind of like that more, because when you do it that way, you can like play it with one kit and then switch the kit up and replay it and change stuff out, and you can hear multiple versions of the drums for one song and figure out which one you like and all, which is really neat. Um, so real quick also, let's just pull all the stops out. So what's the best bang for your buck? In my opinion, right now, Roland just put out the TD17, and the KV version with all the mesh heads and everything is about $1,500. Myself personally, I actually like rubber heads on the toms and a mesh on the snare, because to make it as close to acoustic drums, like the one big difference between acoustic drums is you have a different feel from your snare to your toms. So if I have them all mesh, it's gonna, like, I didn't like having them all rubber, so I changed the snare pad out to a mesh one, and I really like that because I get a certain rebound from my snare and then something different from my toms, and that's enough for me to move back and forth between to keep it close enough. Um, so, um, but if you're on a budget or you're just cool with it, you can probably find the TD11 for about $600 right now, and that's a pretty big steal. Like, they're probably not going to warranty too much on it, or you might find some, but it's a good kit, and you can probably find it for about $600 right now. So my suggestions would be, if you have the money for it, I'd probably go with the TD17 KV, and that's probably all you're going to need, really, because that gives you 2 extra inputs. So you can have 3 crash cymbals, a ride, a hi-hat, and then like a 5-piece kit with a double pedal if you want. And that's, pretty sufficient. It depends on your needs and your wants. And like I said, you can always upgrade with a second module. But my recommendation would be a TD17 if you're going right out, or if you're on a budget, a TD11. And that should finally do it for this video. As you can see, it's getting really dark. So, talk to you later. Have a good night. bye-bye for the final time, and see you next time.